And hello, and welcome back to Chit Chat with Two T's. I am your host, counselling psychologist jvaldez, and with me today is my friend, my family, my brother, my cousin-in-law, my everything, Mr. Stefan de Gale. Welcome, Stefan.
Dr. Valdez.
Speak it into my life. I receive it.
Yeah. Speak it into being, man. Speak it into being.
Welcome to the show. It's been so long trying to get you here. We're very, very happy to have you. How you doing?
Good, Good. I'm on my, what on paper is a 2-week break.
On paper is right.
So it mightn't be like that in reality, but the idea, going with the idea, you know?
Well, sometimes, it's the ideas you need to drive you forward. So we're taking that too, right? But again, really glad to have you, happy to have you make it. And maybe you could tell, the adoring public a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Stefan de Gale. I'm from the cleanest borough of Point Fortin.
All right.
I am a very proud pastorant of the greatest school in South Trinidad, St. Benedict's College. I majored in chemistry at the University of the West Indies. I began teaching at Fatima College 14 years ago. Jeez. And I have been, of that 14 years, I've been at the Dean of Form 5 for 10 years after completing my postgraduate diploma in education. And in the middle of the pandemic, I was able to complete my master's in education from the University of New Brunswick. So,
it's my brother.
Happily married.
Woo!
With 2 fur babies, a husky and a long-coat German.
Hi, Jen. Hi, lady. Hi, Titan.
So, but adulting, we're in the phase of negotiating all that is involved with adulting, but
right.
That's about me, and thanks be to God, I'm happy to be with you on your program today, Jay.
Thanks be to God. I'm very glad to hear that. And so, of course, we don't need to break any ice. But, this is a little tradition now where all my guests, we have a little icebreaker, right? So for you, I have 7 rapid fire questions. Okay, you can't think about it. You just have to answer. Okay? You ready?
Let's go.
All right. South or north?
North.
Play mass or stay home?
Mass.
Football or basketball?
Football.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Sing or play the guitar?
Sing.
Carnival or birthday?
Hey, that one hard, boy. Yeah, stop your rapid fire there, boy. Yeah, I could say both.
But you can't. You can't say both.
Because Carnival is 2 days, I'll go with Carnival.
All right, fair enough. Fatima or Benedict's?
Benedict's, boy.
Hey, that is a lawyer, man. Well, let's see, South man lawyer. So even though he said north, when I said south or north, but it's okay. We'll let it fly. Right? So you did good. You aced the rapid fire questions. Right? And so now we go into our first segment, which is what's in your cup. So today I have my boss lady cup with me. Right? It's usually what I have when I'm in my office, which is where I am today. And in my cup is we have Panorama Cacao drinking chocolate. This is what I have in my cup, and I must say it's quite delightful. I was sharing with Ricardo and Stefan earlier, I usually have my cocoa with milk, but I have this with water, and it's actually still as rich, still as creamy. It's not very, very sweet. So if you're looking for that high level of sweetness, this is not for you, right? But it's good. Like I'm a sweet tooth person and I'm not really missing it that much, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that is what's in my cup, and maybe you could tell us what's in yours.
Yeah, so I have the same. And I think like in your rapid fire question, I'm more of a coffee guy.
Right.
But I'm enjoying this quite a bit. And
Glad to hear that.
I think it's like it doesn't miss the sweetness because you get the real taste of the cocoa, and so I think is 10 out of 10.
Yes, I seen a little oil come into the top and thing, like, the traditional cocoa. I really enjoying that. And, for our viewers, information, Panorama Cacao also does actual chocolate bars, right? So this is just a little sample of it, right? But they have white chocolate and they have dark chocolate. So because it's Lent, I've not been able to partake. But if the cocoa was this good, I'm very much looking forward. Right? But Stefan, you said you enjoyed the chocolate.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. All right, thank you, Panorama Cacao. And you'll learn more about Panorama in our upcoming taste test when we have a little chat with Mr. Michael Paris, right? Who's responsible for Panorama Cacao. So, yes, Stefan, so we know what's in your cup, literally, and maybe you could tell us figuratively what's going on with you.
Well, I think I'm at an interesting point in my life. I mean, we joke about it earlier about the whole idea of adulting. But I think I've had a pretty linear life throughout, and I think I'm faced with having to have some growth spurts now that I didn't necessarily plan for.
Okay.
And for the last several months, I think having to embrace that has brought the whole gambit of emotions with it. And I think I would have been, and not to be the church sounding boy here, I was take this cup away from me at one point kind of attitude. But I have grown over the last few months to say, okay, I think I had to and I have to continue going through some of the adulting challenges. So where it ends or takes me, I'm here for the ride.
I like that. And I was reading a devotional, I think it was yesterday, and that's one of the things they were saying. Sometimes the journey is actually the detour. The journey is the trail and not the main road. So I think as much as we really don't relish those experiences, I love how you put it as growth spurts. Because of course we're far removed from the days of Yui, right? So Stefan and I would have gone to Yui together. He was a little bit ahead of me. He was one of my protectors there. My mother felt a whole lot more comfortable leaving me on my own when she knew that Stefan was going to be there. And we were very actively involved in the Catholic students movement. And, it was just about knowing that you had that level of support. And of course, what you're studying in school, in school, Yui pep party here, there. We have our mass, we have our meetings, but other than that, it was pretty easy living compared to the life of adulthood, right? So, bring back the old time days.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a lot to manage, and of course, in that, I'm sure you would have frustrations. You mentioned all the hats that you wear. Your husband, you are a dean, you are a teacher, and your job itself, because you teach at Fatima, as you mentioned, teenage boys, right? So that's a lot of frustrations in there. Of course, you have the good things, and we'll get to that. But you have things that would challenge you in that way. So in terms of the challenges, that kind of brings us to our next segment. What has boiled your water as of late? What's your pet peeve? What's irritating you? Tell us what's going on with you. Because that's part of mental health, right? Being able to manage the frustrations.
I think one thing is definitely disagreeing, what I've kind of termed disagreeing well.
Disagreeing well, okay.
And so part of my frustration is with us human beings.
You ain't never lied.
Where it's obscene on one hand to disagree, in many instances, and I think now we have gotten to a place where we have lost sight of people's humanity.
Yes.
because we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
And that is coming straight through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And straight through, I think, of a few things that I myself have been dealing with for the last several months.
Yeah.
That I think it is okay to disagree and disagree strongly. I think I have a strong personality, and I am probably even borderline goddamn opinionated. But
borderline.
I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be nice to myself, gentle with myself.
I will, okay, if only because we want to offer you that grace, I'll take it. All right.
But I think I hope at least that even in me expressing my views very strongly and transparently, I hope that people see that I have tried at least not to lose sight of them. And I think over the last little while, I've seen too much and it's not even, I think we go to kind of trigger words, backbiting and It's not even about backbiting and bacchanal. It's about a simple loss of respect for the human person. And I've seen that in ways that sometimes even not directed to me.
Yeah.
That where I have one of the things I've struggled with now is being a voice that is heard. And being able to own my strong opinions.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of my growth spurts that I mentioned, So before, even though I think I had a strong opinion, there was still in my mind a lot of negotiating, choice of words.
Right. Diplomatic,
trying to be clear, but and now I think I've had a few experiences where I had to put diplomacy aside, not forgetting respect, but being able to say, I'm no longer the young teenage 20-year-old good Catholic boy who in church singing and playing the guitar, and what would people say, what would mommy say, what would daddy say, but being able to own my opinion and to be comfortable with it and being able to be flexible with it. So that has been a real experience. I wouldn't always say a struggle, but a real experience.
That's such a difficult part of, I think, the human experience, because I've always felt that the human experience is a common one. There is nothing new under the sun. It just presents itself differently to each person. So everybody has a unique experience of that experience. And so I think what you're battling with is something a lot of people could relate to, especially within a particular age group. We could definitely relate to that. And just because we're now in this age of, you can't offend anybody. Yeah, you can't offend anybody. Speak your truth, be who you are, but don't come against who I am, because that's a problem. So I think it's definitely something that we all are working through, and I'm really grateful and appreciative of you for saying that and actually bringing it to light. So what part of this growth space, this experience for you gets you angry, if any?
One off the bat is, what do I do when I don't sense that I'm being heard? I think that's always, if I have to be very honest, is how do I negotiate that? How do I maybe reframe my opinion so that it is heard, or do I need to shut my mouth?
Right.
That there's that balancing act. I think one occasion that has been at the forefront of my experience for the last little while is even in disagreeing with someone else, I felt the need to defend their humanity.
Wow.
Again, with very little public support, and I think that's the second thing that has angered me, because it would have involved others in our age group,
Right.
you know, and in circles that would be very that, you know, you're not that are frequent circles, that you know, it's not people one-off meetings and they say, hey bro, no, it's people
it's not strangers.
It's not strangers at all. So that idea of being, I don't want to sound like a trade union kind of person.
Yeah.
But I have a deeper appreciation for vocalizing something that for me is a social ill.
Yeah.
and I don't know where that is going to take me. My experience even in completing my master's in education had a lot to do with critical pedagogy,
right?
And pedagogy of liberation, and this whole Brazilian philosophy from Freire and Gradsky and all these great thinkers. And I think it has occupied my mind, and God don't make mistakes. I think I had to kind of be able to have that language in my mind, I think, to accompany what I've been experiencing for a little while.
Yeah.
So that's my challenge, you know, to be a voice that is heard in an effective way, not just heard that I spoke. That could just be noise.
Not just noise. Exactly. Twinsies. Yeah. Yeah, I think
I don't want to make the show too heavy, you know.
No. But this is the thing. So, and that's the beauty of the show, right? We have these very real moments that carry weight, because that's life. And these are exactly the things that impact your mental health, right? The heavy things, right? Interspersed with the light things and vice versa, right? So it's a balance. So you don't worry about that. You don't worry about that at all, right? But yeah, I think we do all struggle with this, you know, what even is your voice? And I think the more we learn is the more our eyes and ears are opened. And sometimes that means that we implement change, not just on a wider scale socially, but in terms of who we are, you know? So as you rightly said, the people who would know you as this, you know, good Catholic boy, you know, always in church, singing with his guitar, and, you know, Marilyn's son, and all of these things, you know, and now you're coming into your own as a man, and you're stepping away from that. Not that it's no longer your foundation, not that it's no longer important to you, but now you're making your own way. You're making your own way. And everybody's not always going to accept that, because we don't like change as humans. We don't like change. So how are you now this different person? You're not the same person I was in youth ministry with. You're not the same person I was at class with in UE. Like, how are you so different now? And that's uncomfortable for other people.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse when, for myself at least, I mean, I could speak for myself, that I know I think I've had to clarify even intentions. And I think I've been able in many instances to say, okay, my intentions are fine here. My intentions are good. And you see ways where you could grow, people in your circles could grow, institutions you have responsibilities for can grow. And there's resistance because it's you, or resistant because we've never done that before.
We don't do it so here.
Or you know, somebody is also speaking what they think is their truth. And in that case, there's also no objectivity to the truth. You know, so it's which is that it could be a landmine kind of experience that is dancing around, you know, but
adulting is hard. It's hard. But even the questions that you're asking, you know, it's about introspection, right? And if you don't change, or if you don't realize that things about you are changing, then you're not really growing. You know, of course, we have to determine if the change is, you know, for better or for worse. But we can't. We're not static. We are dynamic. We are moving and we are growing. So, you know, for people to kind of maintain a particular idea of us throughout our lives, it's actually kind of unrealistic, you know. But we crave what is familiar, and you know, we like to hold on to that, and so that's why sometimes it's difficult. Or if we are already defensive about what we believe, then if anybody raises an issue or a question, then we automatically like, this person is attacking me, when that's not really what it is. Sometimes that's what it is. I want to be fair. Sometimes that's what it is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes somebody's just really trying to seek clarification. And I'm glad that you brought up that thing about intention, and that sometimes you're questioning yours, because we need to do that. Everything that we do and that we don't do is driven by some sort of motivation. Sometimes we're aware of it, and sometimes we're not aware of it. And that's important for us to know. Okay, why is this so important to you? Why are you so vested in this? You know, why is it for you, or is it really for whoever you say it's for? You know, so it's good for us to always kind of question, you know, here and there, why am I doing this? Why is this so important? Because sometimes when you actually determine what the motivation is, you might recognize it really isn't something you should be doing, or it's not for the general good, as you probably would have convinced yourself, you know? Yeah. And we do that often. We justify what we, you know, what we're doing to get what we want.
And then even I've kind of learned to the importance of, which is not always an easy thing for me to do, I'll be first to admit it, is also to rely on others to help
Mr. Independent.
Put the mirror in front of
up to your face.
So even at the beginning of the year, I was going to Philadelphia to attend the ordination of a friend, but because of all the delays and flights and cancellations of flights, I got stuck. I was stuck in Miami for 5 days.
Wow.
I never made it.
I didn't know that.
I never made it to Philadelphia. But I think it was providential that I got stuck there. I wasn't too brave to go all over the place. So I locked myself in the hotel room and looked at TV. Sometimes the TV looked at me.
You needed a rest.
But because I kind of said, you know what, I needed another voice in my head. So I called a Trinidadian who lives up the islands, who is a bishop of the islands. And at the end of our conversation, he said to me, you know what, Stefan, you have to make sure before you do anything else, what your motives are.
Yeah.
I said, I've taken that. I think I had that examination before, but I think hearing it as an imperative, formal, sit down, you know, thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think from January straight down to the beginning of March, this one question I've been mulling over and over. I mean, I'm sure now that my first stance was also pure.
Right.
So it wasn't that I came to a new
realization or
you know, but I think asking the questions brought some security in knowing myself, in being as one sister. Well, I mean, you are in this psychology business. That Sister Julie said to me some time ago, you know, be gentle with yourself. And she said that quite casually in a random conversation we were having. I wasn't saying no therapy, no nothing. I was normal, and she said the same thing, and I kind of took it to heart.
Yeah.
So I had to be patient. I think that's part of the challenge with it too, to be patient.
With you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually something that I would say to clients often, and that I often have to remind myself. Be gentle with yourself and be patient with yourself, because the gentleness and the patience we would extend to others, we often don't give to ourselves. You know, and that's not to say you're going to now excuse all your bad behavior because we're being gentle and patient with ourselves. But it's very important for us to note, you know, you don't have to be so harsh on yourself either. Yes, we hold ourselves to high standards, and that's important. But also, what are the things we could keep, and what are the things we could get rid of? You know, to make our own internal struggles a little bit lighter. You know, and just coming back to your original point about not losing each other's humanity, that's also crucial. Because we could get so caught up in the what that we often forget the who's whom, that. we often forget, the people.
Sure. That's true.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of the times I have to, and I would have shared this in the episode with my good friend, I think as well, Jolene Romaine. Sometimes it's just about recognizing that what somebody's reaction often doesn't have anything to do with you. Yeah, that's a big piece for me in terms of just kind of being not anything happens, but it helps me to move with the flow a little bit more. Because I am, I think intrinsically a people pleaser. So sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this thing I'm doing? Is what I'm saying, going to be hurtful? And it's the balance. You want to be mindful of others and their feelings, but you also need to do what is genuinely good and what feels right to you. That's a balance, and it's hard. It's not always easy, So I want to thank you for sharing that as well. And even as you maneuver that, how is your mental health in general? Having all those balls up in the air and then also dealing with yourself. What's going on with your mental health?
I think it's a mixed bag.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think it's a mixed bag. I think I don't know how clinically things may be defined. What I don't think I have like kind of clinical depression,
right?
That I sit down in a corner and I crying and I can't control myself and I can't sleep. Nah, I sleeping easy. Normal. No. Right? That ain't no problem. Sometimes I fall asleep before my head hit the pillow. I go on. But I think mentally, my big thing is dealing with disappointment. And again, disappointment more so with people.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a superficial way. I have been really disappointed with people. And I think part of the growth spurt is getting away from the utopic, you just must see the good.
Yes.
Look beyond. Look
the bread you eat.
And there comes a point where you just have to say, this is absolute BS. And that is what it is. Full stop. End of story.
Real milk cow feces. Cow feces.
Yeah. You dig? So that is mentally, I think that has been my big challenge. How to respond to disappointment. And I know, I guess people have different downers and so for different reasons. But for me, that has been my real struggle. How have I managed to deal with that? I try to keep, I wouldn't say busy, because I'm naturally very busy.
Naturally. That's why you could sleep so good.
Yeah. But I think I've tried to keep things in perspective, not to take everything personally.
Yeah.
And also because of being, I think to a point, very self-aware, that I know very clearly being disappointed is not the end of me. And it isn't the end of the story either. That I may have also disappointed people at some point. And would hope that there could be some kind of reconciliation if that's in the cards. But
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, so there's a bit of humility that has, for me, that had to come along and is coming along with it.
Humility is a huge piece.
But yeah, mentally then, I think it has done a lot for my spiritual life.
Right, good.
To see it through a very human lens.
Mm-hmm.
So mentally that's my challenge. And thankfully I still have very good support systems. I have good friends. There are some things, obviously, because of the nature of things that I can't share with all and sundry.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
But I've found it necessary to make sure that there are still outlets where, I could make a phone call, or go on somewhere and sit down and meet somebody and in the old talk, or somebody who knows and who will be honest.
It's important to have honest people in your life.
Yeah.
It is very important. Yep.
Yeah. So that has been a huge help. Huge help over the last several months.
Mm-hmm.
To have, and then sometimes you feel bad. It's like, oh God, how harassing Jen, so boy. She must be tired hearing all my sad stories.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then I say, this is why you marry me, you can't escape. Yeah.
I was about to say that's kind of, it's a package deal. It's in the fine print when you get married. Yes.
But it's all in it, and so I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I have good friends, family. I don't think I have a huge cadre of, I think I'm known.
Yes.
But I don't think at the same time I don't want to make it sound, but I'm not a socialite that I have to be in people's face every minute.
Yes.
So I have that core set of people who really are support, and it's not just about praying it away.
And I'm glad to hear you say that too, because I think we do have a bad habit in a lot of faith institutions that you just kind of say, well, just pray on it now. Just pray about it. And I'm like, okay, so if we could trust doctors, and say, well, God is still healing, but we're going to a doctor, why can't we just admit that we need other people? We might need a counselor, and even if not a counselor, you want to talk to a friend. It's not just, praying is important, but it's not just about that. I'm very happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned doctors and all this kind of thing, and I did a talk, in fact, for a group of people some months ago in the pandemic. And in one of in fact, it was 4 weeks of talks.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things in my preparation for it, I came across a fantastic Latin phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Ipsum esse subsistens.
Oh.
And it's about God is not one thing above others.
He's in everything.
But he is a substance of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you might think the spiritual life is you go to somebody, put lay hands on you.
Right.
And those things are important.
Yes.
But at the same time, God is working through the medicine. God is working through the psychologist.
Yeah.
God is working through the teacher. God is working in the taxi driver.
Yeah. Everywhere.
In putting things together, in you needing flour to make bread, somewhere that the very fact that is there is because God is. And it's just, that was a powerful moment for me, because that's the easy way out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's the easy way out. I think we have sold people short by selling them that brand of Christianity and so on. Because don't try to put God in a box.
Which is what we try to do often. This is what we try to do often, because we try to make it digestible, I guess. And in doing that, we kind of water him down, but it's so much bigger than we could ever truly encompass or comprehend in our minds. So I'm very glad that you said that. And, so you said that you have a good support system, which is crucial in managing your mental health. What else helps you?
Rest.
Which you have
Just
zero problem getting.
Yeah, and not only sleep.
Yeah.
And not only sleep, you know. I've started now trying to guard home time is home time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have very late days. Even if I finish teaching 7 at night, I may have 1 or 2 things to do. By a certain time, that switches off.
Yeah.
I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yes.
I'll get to it in the morning. That has been huge. Locking off, letting everything have the time and place.
Establishing boundaries.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That has
it's my
been,
favorite B word.
Yeah. I've got a favorite B word.
Hey, you have a favorite.
There's not a space for that.
It's not a kind of party, okay?
It's not a kind of party. No, but yeah. No, but that became a huge thing, especially when for almost 2 years we you taught from home.
Yeah.
School and home, there was no difference.
The boundaries were blurred.
Blurred. So that became huge. And the last thing that I've learned that I really love doing is cutting grass.
And that's when I knew my friend was an adult.
Yeah.
What is that?
I'm telling you.
Just cutting grass?
I'm telling you, just me and my waka.
Yeah.
You know,
and the open lawn.
We moved into our own home.
Amen.
Had to get my waka.
Yes.
I didn't know how to use a waka because I never had grass in my house growing up.
Right.
My father-in-law gave me a crash course in wakaring.
That is a good thing to learn. Yes.
And boy, I was like, where this thing was all my life. So when I stand up for 3-4 hours cutting grass on a weekend, my thoughts and the hum of the engine of the waka.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Wow.
I need. So,
I think in all the episodes that we've done so far, that is by far the most interesting way of managing your mental health that I have heard. Yeah, and you see, it's the simple things, right? It's the simple things.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, you probably would never have thought you could have gained that from cutting grass. Ricardo, what are you agreeing with Ricardo? That's the most interesting thing we've heard, or that you also like to cut grass?
No. Definitely that is the single most interesting thing we've heard as the way are coping.
Correct.
I don't normally jump in, but that listen, I nearly threw on my phone, Anyway.
And I'll tell you, I think I know why. Outside of the little sweat I get from it.
Yes.
Looking at the finished product.
And knowing that you did that.
Yeah. Besides saving money.
Of course. Because you're going to be paying the boy down the hill to do it.
Yeah. And after I realized, wait now, do the maths, and I cut the grass 5 times and I realized I pay off for my worker.
Yay!
But when I look back and I finish and I rake up the grass and I cut grass maybe twice a month, maybe.
Yeah.
And up to now, this is more than a year that I'm now cutting grass for myself. And I still ask my wife, how it looking?
Yes!
How it looking? Without fail.
Right. Yes. And you're proud of it. Yeah.
It's a thing. It's an actual thing.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, the secret is out. Right? So men are actually cutting grass for their mental health and well-being. Yeah. Right? This is going to be this is going to be a good excuse for some of them, because they're going to say, but you hear it on your show, so I have to do it now. It's for my mental health. That time they're running away from whatever the wife want them to do inside. But
I hope to never see this part of the episode.
But yeah, and it's the little things like that, right? So because we've heard all sorts of things throughout, filming this. It's been such a good experience, but gold medal for you. You have one. Yeah, that is definitely.
Yeah, don't play Benix men, no. Don't play Benix men at all. We out here for the win.
Hashtag Benix men. Yeah. So that's good. So we have cutting grass, and we have you spoke about your spirituality, and you spoke about, of course, your social support system. I don't know if you would describe yourself as a creative, but you are extremely talented in terms of music. You're a wonderful guitarist, and I feel like that's not the appropriate adjective. It's an understatement to say that. And also, you are a fantastic, award-winning vocal talent, right? Or he win like in Sandfest and all kind of thing, music festival. I'm trying to watch him slide there, That diction did not come just from, learning how to speak well, right? As taught by his mother, I'm sure. But so does that play a role in how you manage your mental health at all? In terms of the music?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think admittedly, I don't spend as much time with it as I did before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have, we have only now kind of resettled into a single parish.
Right. Okay.
So before is wherever we end up on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That we go to church, we go to mass, and then as far as performing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm far from point now, so that there's no more Mike Shazuri to perform.
Right. Yes.
But I'm sure there would be some form of discipline
Mm-hmm.
that that I would have learned, that would have come to bear in the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
The things that can't leave you.
Yeah.
The idea of having, as you said, teaching boys.
Right.
And going into a class,
Mm-hmm.
might be for religion, might be someone, I always singing.
I believe
so.
100%.
And then out of that rhythm section, start up ponging this, but in it you're teaching a lesson.
Yeah.
So there are things that I think benefits me quite a bit in
Mm-hmm.
my profession and personal life. With my own talents, our school for 18 months straight, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday had a virtual devotion during the pandemic.
Wow.
We did not miss a night.
Mm-hmm.
We played and we sang and so on, and became an extended community of people.
That's lovely.
And so the talent thing that did come in, and extending myself, not being
Mm-hmm.
swamped, getting on, under any depression.
Yeah.
The extending myself was important, in that way.
That's excellent. And I'm glad that you brought up again, that you teach boys. How do you see that in 2022, where we really don't have a lot of strong male figures or role models for them, in terms of your role as a teacher of males? What does that mean to you? What does that do for you as an individual? What do you see as your purpose in terms of not just teaching them the curriculum, but being in their lives every day?
Yeah, I would share the view of a Trinidad. In fact, she went to St. Joseph Convent, San Fernando. She's a professor of sociology now in the United States. And she said at a conference last year that she rejects the notion of toxic masculinity.
Interesting.
Say
more.
She piqued my interest there. And she said no. She said there's toxic humanity.
True.
She said because what people are not talking about is, if we have to be equal, is toxic femininity and whatever. Mm-hmm. And she said that it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, that you trumpet this thing, toxic masculinity. And I'll be honest that you've seen that in the classical way it's spoken about.
Yeah.
But in a school like the college that I'm at, there are a lot of students that are well-to-do. but there are students that are not.
Right.
There are students who are not blonde and blue-eyed, as many people think, and they do well.
Yeah.
So I think part of what we in education terms we might call the null curriculum, things that are not written in a textbook to teach.
But you still have to teach it.
In your action, you teach in the off-the-cuff conversations when somebody presenting something in the class through my interaction.
Yeah.
That is a means of changing the narrative. That's a big deal for me. We have to change the narrative. We have to stop this toxic masculinity thing that you always say, well, like, okay, that's what we're destined for. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real problem. I had a huge problem with it when after the election in 2020, and we had our new ministers of education and the Honorable Prime Minister, who I've openly have tremendous respect for, because I think heavy the head that wears the crown.
True.
But I think I disagreed with him when he made the comment that education would now be better off because I put 2 women and 2 mothers in charge of it.
Yeah.
The former Minister of Education was also a father.
Right.
A father who has who had raised children who had PhDs. Father who had lots of children. And I think that's a false narrative. And I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate when we still have consultations about education that rehash the same garbage from the consultations last 5 years. I think for boys' school, for boys' schools in general, and I mean this with all respect, I think it's an awful idea when people argue about whether or not a woman should be principal of a boys' school, because nobody makes the argument, why should a man not be principal of St. Joseph Convent or Holy Faith Convent? That never comes up. That never comes up. And is it that what you trust a woman with boys,
that you don't trust a man with girls.
You don't trust a man with girls, then he should not be in education, period.
Right.
So I think there are things that we need to start being brutally honest about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my passion for education is coming out a little bit here.
Well, that's good.
But it's really it's a thing that we have to deal with if education has to move forward.
Yeah.
It's not just about moving, and sadly, I think the pandemic has brought up a sense of, do we advance education through technology? Yeah, that's important. That's important, but there are dimensions of education we have not yet started speaking honestly about and working toward.
True.
That doesn't cost a cent.
And so all of that makes you think, okay, why then do you not want that move? What's the reason? It takes work.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. We don't do that here. We don't do that here.
And not only here, I think and that was partly one of the reasons we got hit with a huge bill to complete our masters. But I think for me, I wanted the non-Caribbean experience of study.
Yeah. Which was so important.
Which
for
was
a proper world.
Yeah. And you realize how similar we are to other places.
Yeah.
That our problems are not unique to us.
No.
But again, I think it's a matter of narrative. in many regards. I think if we start to understand that, we will protest less. Even if we disagree, a disagreement doesn't always need to end up in a protest. You look at trade unions, and the majority of their leadership are dinosaurs. Where do we go? Old men dream dreams, young men have visions. That kind of saying,
Yeah.
And it's like if it's just a rehashing of old thoughts and ideas, and I mean, hopefully, I mean, we saw that wonderful image that I think circulated quite a bit on social media with Catholic Archbishop breaking fast with Muslims.
Right.
Recently. And I was surprised at how much traction that got. Because I think there's still a lot of Trinidad that is still worth loving and working for. And my concern when we protest, we lose sight that we're still worth loving, you know?
I love that.
We're still worth loving. And Trinidad is a wonderful place to be.
It has a lot of potential, you know, but, you know, conversely, I always remember a quote that says potential means you ain't doing nothing now. You know, so it means that we do have to do the work to get to where we would like to be. I am all for, you know, advances in technology and encouraging STEM, but there are so many other aspects that are also needed. You know, as you rightly said, that are important. Are we, you know, we're still not talking about how do we properly have sex education in schools. We're still not having that conversation in 2022, right? When I'm sure the rates of teen pregnancy have not decreased. Right? So, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. And I think it's important that there are people who see that the work has to be done. Our males need that support. They do, especially in school, because that's where they spend most of their time. You know, we don't have as many male teachers as we used to, right? I don't know. I guess a lot of men don't see it as maybe a worthwhile job or as a vocation anymore. And I really do hope that from your experience, you know, speaking about your experience here, would encourage some people to really think about getting into it, because we do need the male perspective. We do need the male presence for both our girls and our boys, but primarily for the boys, because, you know, we have to face the fact that a lot of them may have that maternal presence, but not necessarily that paternal presence.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so if they could get that support in school where they could talk about anything, you know, to their teachers, I think that would go a long way in terms of creating the Trinidad and Tobago living out the potential that we see.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's important. So I think that brings us to the end today. I don't know if you have any parting words for our listeners and our viewers.
Well, I don't know, you know, in closing.
In conclusion.
Really, it's just, I think, to what we ended with there is we in a country that is worth loving. We ourselves are worth loving.
Yeah.
And I think the more we respect that, the more we respect other people and their humanity.
Yeah.
In agreement and in disagreement. I think we could only grow from that kind of, not just a flippant kind of positivity that is rooted in nothing, but something that is really secure, you know?
Yeah.
So, and really, thanks for this opportunity. It's been great. I mean, the time has gone. I'm now looking on the clock and I don't know where the time went.
That's what happens. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Time flies when you're with family. You know, that's just how it goes.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I'm really appreciative that you were able to fit us into your also busy schedule.
And don't forget your Panorama Cacao.
Right? Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Quality.
And some lucky person will have the opportunity to get their hands on some of this amazing drinking chocolate and to sample the dark chocolate. Packaging is amazing, I must say, as well as the white chocolate. Right? So a special thanks again to our featured product today, Panorama Cacao. And we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more from them. And of course, I'm going to finish off my delicious cocoa. I can't wait. I have to share with Ricardo. I really want to do that, but, you know, I'll give him a little blind. And thank you for being with us, you know, speaking about mental health. It's always good to hear, especially from the male perspective. And I hope that what you have shared here today will definitely touch the lives of many in the country and internationally. And also that, you know, we openly speak about mental health, especially with our males, because it's something that we don't really encourage, we don't do. And a lot of them don't understand what that looks like. You know, I heard you say earlier, you know, you didn't really experience depression in the expected sense, you know. And for men, a lot of men, it looks differently. For some men, depression presents as irritability and anger. right? So it's a lot of things that we have to learn and, socialize. And you have that beautiful opportunity as you mold those young minds. So I want to say congratulations on doing what I am certain is a good job so far. And I pray that God blesses you so that you'll be able to continue.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. And all the best with your endeavors, and this podcast has been great.
Thank you. I received that. So thank you again. And everybody, until next time, this has been Chit Chat with 2 T's, where we discuss the mental health actual factuals. Take care. And see. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So, I just want to, big up you to Khadijah Lewis of Make Memories, right? She did this beautiful floral art that uses the colors of my logo, my branding for Equilibre Counselling and Consulting Services.
What is it made of?
Paper, right? She used canvas and she made the paper flowers and stuck onto it. And I think that's I think the leaves may have been things that she spray painted. I'm not sure if she bought them like that, right? So I told her what my colors were, and she did this amazing piece for me. And it's the focal point of my office, and I love it so much, and I wanted to share it with everybody. And then I have my amazing I Am Someone's Hope, right, t-shirt that I got from Kingdom Concepts. So thanks to Make Memories and Kingdom Concepts for helping make my my episode with Stefan a little more special. Yeah.